Crothar made a fatal mistake when they decided to target humanity. Now they were about to learn the hard way why you don't mess with the Terran Federation. They picked the wrong species to fuck with. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress call," Lieutenant Chen reported from the comm station. "It's coming from a ship in a nearby system, the Deneb sector. Species unknown." Captain Bruce Crawford leaned forward in his command chair aboard the TFS Prometheus. After months of monotonous patrols, he itched for some action. "Set a course maximum FTL. Let's check it out." The Prometheus dropped out of warp to find a small, battered ship fleeing from a massive warship of alien design. The smaller vessel was clearly outmatched. Crawford didn't hesitate. "Gunnery, lock weapons on that warship. Comms, hail them and tell them to stand down or we will open fire." The alien vessel ignored the warning, launching another salvo of missiles at its target. The Prometheus's point defense lasers flashed, swatting the incoming ordnance from the sky. "They aren't backing off, sir," Chen called out. "Light 'em up." The Prometheus's main guns roared to life, lancing out with beams of superheated plasma. The alien shields flared, then popped like a soap bubble. Blooms of flame erupted from its hull as the Terran barrage tore it apart. In moments, the hostile vessel was the expanding field of debris. The Prometheus pulled alongside the ship they had saved, a battered, disc-shaped craft of dull gray metal. An alien voice crackled across the comms, speaking accented but understandable English. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Vortis of the Riemann ship Telvos. We thank you for your aid. Our species is facing extinction at the hands of the Crothar. Please, we need your help. You may be our only hope." Crawford felt a chill run up his spine. He had a sinking feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous than he ever expected. But there was one thing he knew for certain. Humanity would not turn its back on a species pleading for help, even if it meant war with a powerful new enemy. Even if it meant the future of the Terran Federation itself hung in the balance. "Captain Vortis, I'm Bruce Crawford of the Terran Federation. Let's talk. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of each other. The Terran Federation stands with the Riemann people." Crawford drummed his fingers on the armrest of his command chair as a small fleet of Terran Federation ships dropped out of FTL, the TFS Titan at the forefront. The massive battlecruiser was an imposing sight, its angular hull filled with heavy railguns and missile batteries. "Captain Thorne is hailing us, sir," Lieutenant Chen reported. Crawford allowed himself a small smile. "Put him through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the grizzled face of Marcus Thorne. The older captain had a jagged scar running down his left cheek, a souvenir from a long-ago battle. "Bruce," Thorne said with a nod, "looks like you've gotten yourself into quite the mess." "Nothing we can't handle, Marcus," Crawford replied. "Glad to have you and the Titan at our backs." Thorne grunted. "Well, let's not keep our new friends waiting." He gestured to the tactical display where the alien fleet was rapidly closing in. "What's the plan?" Crawford leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "We use the Prometheus and the Titan as bait, draw them away from the Riemann ship and the rest of the fleet. Then we hit them hard from both sides." Thorne's face split into a feral grin. "I like the way you think, Bruce. Let's give these bastards a taste of what human ingenuity can do." The two captains quickly hashed out the details of their plan, their crews working seamlessly to coordinate their efforts. As the alien fleet entered weapons range, the Prometheus and Titan surged forward, their engines flaring brightly. The alien ships, caught off guard by the sudden charge, broke formation to engage the two human battleships. Crawford felt the deck shudder beneath his feet as the Prometheus's guns roared to life, lancing out with beams of superheated plasma. "Keep us moving, helmsman," Crawford ordered. "Don't give them a clear shot." The Prometheus and Titan wove through the enemy formation, their shields flaring as they absorbed the brunt of the alien assault. Crawford gritted his teeth as a particularly heavy barrage slammed into the Prometheus's port side, alarms blaring across the bridge. "Shields down to 30%, Chen called out. "We can't take much more of this, sir." Crawford's mind raced, searching for a solution. Divert power from all non-essential systems, he said. Route it to weapons and engines. We're not backing down. As the battle raged on, the rest of the Terran fleet swept in from behind, catching the alien ships in a deadly crossfire. The Prometheus shuddered as another salvo of enemy fire hammered into its weakened shields. Shields are gone, sir, Chen reported, her voice tight with tension. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Crawford's hands clenched the armrests of his chair, his eyes locked on the interface. The Prometheus was taking a beating, but he refused to give up, not when so much was at stake. Suddenly, the Titan surged forward, placing itself between the Prometheus and the enemy ships that were closing in for the kill. Thorne's face appeared on the interface, his expression fierce. "We've got you covered, Bruce," he said. "Keep fighting." Together, the two battleships pressed their attack, their crews working as one to outmaneuver and outgun the enemy. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Crawford watched as the alien ships fell back, their numbers dwindling under the relentless human assault. Sensing an opportunity, he made a split-second decision. "Target the flagship," he ordered, his voice steady. "All weapons, fire at will." The Prometheus surged forward, the Titan at its side. Together, they unleashed a devastating barrage of missiles and energy weapons, overwhelming the flagship's defenses and reducing it to a burning husk. With their flagship gone and their fleet in tatters, the remaining alien ships fled, jumping away into FTL. Crawford sagged back in his chair, his heart pounding in his chest. They had won the day, but at a heavy cost. The Prometheus was badly damaged, its hull scarred and pitted from the brutal fighting. But they were still here, still fighting. Captain Vortis's face appeared on the display, his expression one of profound gratitude. "Captain Crawford, I cannot thank you enough for what you and your people have done today. You have saved the Riemann race from extinction." Crawford nodded, his face grim. "This is only the beginning, Captain Vortis. We have made a powerful enemy today. But know this, the Terran Federation will stand with you, whatever it takes. We will face this threat together." He turned to his crew, his expression hardening. "Begin repairs on the double. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. This war is a long way to go." The Prometheus dropped out of FTL, the blue-green orb of the Riemann colony world filling the view screen. But as they approached, Captain Crawford's stomach sank. The planet's surface was scarred with massive impact craters and debris fields where cities once stood. "My God," Lieutenant Chen whispered, "it's gone." Crawford turned to Captain Vortis, who stood rigid beside him. The Riemann's face was a mask of grief and rage. "I'm sorry, Vortis," Crawford said softly. "We'll find the bastards who did this." They shuttled down to the surface, picking their way through the rubble of what was once the colony's capital. The air was thick with ash and the acrid smell of burning plastics. A handful of shell-shock survivors huddled in the ruins, their eyes vacant. One of them, an elderly Raymond with burns across half his face, shuffled up to Vortis. "Captain," he croaked, "they came without warning. Our defenses, they were nothing against their weapons." Vortis clasped the man's shoulder. "Tell us everything." Over the next few hours, Crawford and his team heard dozens of similar accounts. The Zarathans, as the Riemanns called them, had swept through the sector like a plague of locusts, leaving devastation in their wake. Back aboard the Prometheus, Crawford called a meeting with Vortis and the senior staff. They gathered around the holotable, grim-faced as they reviewed the intel. "Their tech is beyond anything we've ever seen," Lieutenant Rodriguez, the chief engineer, said. "Those shields of theirs, I've never seen anything like it." Crawford nodded. "But they're not invincible. We hurt them in that last battle." He called up the sensor logs from their previous engagement, highlighting the Zarathan ship's movements. "Look here," he said. "They rely on brute force. No finesse, no complex maneuvers, just overwhelming firepower." Thorne leaned in, his eyes narrowing. "You're right. They're strong but predictable." Crawford looked around the table. "We can use that against them. Hit them where they're vulnerable. Supply lines, production facilities." He outlined his plan for a strike deep into Zarathan territory. When he finished, the room was silent. Vortis spoke first. "It's risky, Captain, very risky." "I know," Crawford said, "but it's our best shot at buying time for the Federation to prepare." After hours of debate, Vortis and the Raymond leaders agreed. They would contribute ships and personnel to the mission, their knowledge of Zarathan-controlled space proving invaluable. Over the next weeks, a small fleet assembled around the Prometheus. Human and Raymond crews worked side by side, forging a bond in their shared dedication. On the eve of their departure, Crawford stood before the combined crews. The hangar bay of the Prometheus was packed, faces turned up expectantly. "We face an enemy unlike any we've encountered before," Crawford said, his voice carrying across the bay. "But we are not alone. Human and Raymond, standing together against the darkness. We go now to strike a blow for freedom, for justice, for the right of all species to live without fear." He paused, looking out over the sea of faces. "The road ahead will be hard, but I promise you this. The Zarathans will rue the day they made an enemy of humanity and the Raymond people." A cheer went up, human and Raymond voices joining as one. As Crawford made his way back to the bridge, he felt a fierce pride in his crew, in this alliance forged in the fires of adversity. The fleet moved into formation, engines flaring to life. Crawford settled into his command chair, his voice steady as he gave the order. "All ships, prepare for FTL jump. We have a war to win." Captain Crawford stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as the Terran Raymond strike force dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Kartok system. The industrial world loomed before them, its orbital shipyards bustling with activity. "All ships, maintain radio silence," Crawford ordered. "Prepare for attack, run on my mark." The fleet moved silently through space, guided by Raymond scouts who knew every asteroid and debris field in the system. As they closed in on their target, Crawford felt his heart racing. This was it, the moment that would determine if their audacious plan would succeed or fail. "Mark," he said. The Prometheus's guns roared to life, joined by a barrage from the Raymond frigates. Beams of superheated plasma lanced out, tearing through the unprepared Zarathan defenses. Explosions blossomed across the shipyards as fusion reactors went critical. "Direct hits on primary fabrication facilities," Lieutenant Chen reported. "Enemy ships are scrambling to respond." Crawford nodded. "All ships, execute evasive pattern Delta. We hit hard and fast. Then we're gone." The strike force danced through the debris field they'd created, dodging return fire from the few operational Zarathan vessels. Within minutes, the once mighty shipyards were reduced to twisted metal and floating wreckage. As quickly as they'd arrived, the Terran Raymond fleet vanished back into FTL, leaving chaos in their wake. The victories continued. On Vrykal, Captain Thorne led his Marines alongside Raymond warriors in a lightning assault on Zarathan supply depots. Plasma rifles crackled and energy blades hummed as they fought their way through alien defenses. "Push forward!" Thorne bellowed, ducking under a burst of enemy fire. "We've got them on the run!" The combined human-Raymond force was unstoppable, their coordination and ferocity overwhelming the Zarathan garrison. Within hours, the depots were under their control, and demolition charges were being set. As the raids intensified, the Zarathans grew desperate. Massive fleets were mobilized to hunt down Crawford's forces, but the strike team remained elusive. They struck targets and vanished before the enemy could bring its full might to bear. Crawford's most daring move came at a Zarathan dry dock facility. The Prometheus and its escorts swooped in, guns blazing. Capital ships under refit were crippled, their hulls breached and systems fried. "Incoming Zarathan battle group," Chen warned. "They've got us outnumbered 10-1. Crawford's lips tightened. "All ships, make for the Crimson Nebula. Prepare to deploy mines on my command." The strike force raced for the swirling red gases of the nearby nebula, pursued by the enraged Zarathans. As they plunged into the dust cloud, Crawford gave the order. Mines bloomed in their wake, creating a deadly field of explosions for their pursuers. For hours, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse through the nebula. The nimble Terran and Riemann ships darted between gas pockets and radiation storms, harassing the lumbering Zarathan vessels until they were forced to withdraw. With each raid, Crawford's forces gathered crucial intelligence on Zarathan weaknesses. The Raymonds grew bolder, volunteering for increasingly dangerous missions against their oppressors. As supply lines were choked and production facilities destroyed, cracks began to show in the Zarathan war machine. Reports filtered in of infighting among alien commanders and growing unrest in conquered territories. Crawford knew they'd bought the Federation valuable time to prepare, but he also realized the Zarathans would eventually mass their remaining strength for a crushing blow. As he stood on the Prometheus's bridge, planning their next move, he knew the time had come for their most audacious strike yet. "Set course for the Zarathan core worlds," he ordered, his voice steady. "It's time we took this fight to the heart of their empire." The crew tensed, knowing the risks. But as the Prometheus's engines flared to life, there was a palpable sense of anticipation. They were about to make history, one way or another. The Prometheus surged through uncharted space, its engines straining as it led the Terran Riemann strike force toward their most daring target yet. Captain Crawford stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing their perilous route through asteroid fields and radiation storms. "Riemann intel confirms minimal patrols in this sector," Lieutenant Chen reported. "We should reach Corvus undetected in 6 hours." Crawford nodded, his face etched with tension. "Good. Inform all ships to prepare for immediate combat operations upon arrival." As they approached the Zarathan throne world, the crew worked feverishly to ready weapons and shields. The air thrummed with nervous energy as Marines donned combat suits and checked their gear. The Prometheus dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Corvus system. Instantly, alarms blared as sensors detected the planet's formidable defenses. "Multiple orbital platforms detected," Chen called out. "Energy readings off the charts." Crawford's voice cut through the chaos. "All ships, commence attack pattern Delta. Prometheus, target the nearest defense station." The human Riemann fleet exploded into action. Plasma beams lanced out, slamming into Zarathan shields. Return fire blazed across space, scoring hits on several ships. On the planet's surface, Captain Thorne led his strike team through the streets of the opulent capital. Buildings of twisted metal and crystalline spires loomed overhead as they fought block by block. "Push forward," Thorne shouted, ducking behind a fallen pillar as energy bolts sizzled past. "We need to reach that palace." His Marines advanced, their rifles spitting death at the Zarathan defenders. Rayman allies moved alongside, their natural agility allowing them to outflank enemy positions. The fighting intensified as they neared the Imperial Palace. Its massive gates stood before them, guarded by scores of elite Zarathan warriors. "Breaching charges," Thorne ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves to the Emperor." Explosions rocked the entrance. Through smoke and debris, Thorne's forces stormed inside. They battled room by room, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Finally, they reached the throne room. The Zarathan Emperor stood waiting, a hulking figure clad in ornate battle armor. He sneered at the human captain. "You dare invade my home?" the alien despot growled. "I will crush you myself." Thorne raised his combat blade. "Bring it on, ugly." The two leaders clashed in a furious duel. The Zarathan's strength was immense, but Thorne matched it with speed and skill. Their weapons sparked as they traded blows, neither giving ground. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Both combatants bled from multiple wounds. Thorne's arms burned with fatigue, but he pressed on. With a final, desperate lunge, Thorne's blade found a gap in the Emperor's armor. The Zarathan fell to his knees, defeated at last. "Yield!" Thorne gasped, his blade at the alien's throat. The Emperor's eyes blazed with hate, but he nodded in surrender. Thorne's victory was short-lived. His calm crackled to life with Crawford's urgent voice. "Massive Zarathan fleet just arrived in system," the captain reported. "We're taking heavy losses. You need to evac now." Thorne looked around at his battered forces, then at the captured throne room. Negative, sir. We're cut off down here. No way to reach the extraction point. There was a long pause before Crawford replied, his voice heavy. Understood. We'll try to break through, but... Save it, Bruce, Thorne said. You need to get out of here. We'll hold as long as we can. On the Prometheus, Crawford's hands clenched as he gave the order to retreat. Zarathan ships swarmed around them, pummeling the human and Riemann vessels. All ships disengage and make for the rally point, Crawford commanded, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. As the battered fleet limped away from Corvus, Crawford opened a channel to Captain Vortis's ship. We lost a lot of good people today, Crawford said quietly. Vortis's face was grim but resolute. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. We have struck a blow the Zarathans will not soon forget. Crawford nodded, staring out at the stars as they fled toward home. The real war, he knew, was only beginning, but humanity and its allies had proven they would not go quietly into the night.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.